Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. So first of all, this video is being prepared in conducting the group assignment for Management Accounting 1 subject, where the main topic for this assignment is activity-based costing. So we are from group B, and in this video we'll be discussing about the subtopic of that we have chosen, which is the limitation of activity-based costing. So our group members consists of 5 members. The first one is Muhammad HAZIQ bin Ahmad Sahar. The second is Muhammad SHAMIL NAZLEEN bin ZULKIFLI. The third is Suwaisan, and the fourth is NURSYAFIQAH UBAIDAH BINTI MOSTAM, and the last member is me, Tasha binti MALLARANGENG. Before we begin explaining our subtopic in limitation of activity-based costing, here are the list of contents that we will cover in this video. So first, we will explain about the introduction part, which is some general introduction of the activity-based costing. Next, we will explain about the limitation exists in this costing system, and there are 5 limitations that we will cover. The first one is the process is very complex. The second limitation about it is not suitable for small companies. The third about the time involvement. The fourth limitation about the difficulty in measurement. The last limitation about the timeliness of information. Then after that, we will do the conclusion part, which is the summary of our overall point in this subtopic, and then we will finish it with the list of references that we use in conducting this video presentation. Here I will be explaining about some introduction of the activity-based costing. So activity-based costing is viewed as a more accurate way of calculating product cost than the traditional costing, where in the traditional costing there is no actual relationship between the cost pool and the cost driver involved. This activity-based costing also designed to assign costs to activity, which enable more accurate cost information that may translate directly into a higher profit. Then this activity-based costing also broadly applicable across the spectrum of company function, and it is not limited to the factory itself. And as Peter Drucker said, without productivity objectives, a business does not have a direction, and without the productivity measurement, a business does not have a control. Thus, we can say that measurement plays a very important role in the management of productivity, where it helps to determine whether an organization is progressing well in their production or not. Although the technical characteristics of activity-based costing system are well understood, it appears that some organizations still have difficulties in implementing the system, and one of the reasons is due to the limitation occurs in the costing system. So that's all from me, and I will pass to the next presenter to explain about the limitation that exists in this activity-based costing. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Muhammad HAZIQ bin Ahmad Sahar. My metric number is 277208. Here, there is some articles that I refer, which is the activity-based costing advantage and disadvantage. Based on article, one of the limitations of the activity-based costing system is it has more complex process compared to the traditional costing system. This is because the activity-based costing system was needed more detailed and compressed than the standard cost accounting, which means the traditional costing. From the article, we found that the activity-based costing is more complex as it involves numerous cost pools and multiple cost drivers in allocating the cost. An activity cost pools is an aggregate of all the costs incurred for a specific group of activities. In other words, it's a way to record the cumulative cost of a group of similar activity by pooling or cost incurred in a particular activity is simpler to get an accurate estimate of the cost of activity. An activity cost pool includes both fixed and variable costs. There are a lot of activity cost pools such as setting up equipment, machining, inspecting products, moving materials, and more. For example, setting up equipment might be one activity associated with the production of a particular product, and the cost of setup would be one cost included in an activity cost pool. It is not easy to estimate the cost of activity pools and to identify the cost driver as cost allocation basis, so that the numerous activity cost pool make the process of activity-based costing more complex. This is because the management needed to identify the activity that were associated with the amount of overhead and group them into numerous activity cost pools. Apart from that, activity-based costing is more complex as it involves multiple cost drivers in allocating the cost. Cost drivers are any factors or activity that have a cost-effect relationship with the resources consumed. These are some type of cost drivers. There are number of setups, number of machine hours, number of labor hours, number of order complete, number of move, and more. The management should identify the cost drivers associated with each activity. The overhead cost allocated to the cost pool is assigned to products using cost drivers. A cost driver is a factor that drives the cost of activity. Well, under the activity-based costing system, each of those cost pools are often broken or separate according its related activities, and this makes the activity-based costing system has multiple cost drivers and overhead rates. Before that, it may take hundreds of inquiries to identify and gather the information on that. Obviously, we can realize that activity-based costing system needs to use many more statistical measures than the traditional system. So, this shows that it is hard to identify to although activity that influence the cost. It is impossible to allocate all the overhead costs to specific activities. Missing interpretation of activity-based costing data will result from the selection of incorrect activities and cost drivers. So, management should be careful in identify the costs that are relevant to the decision to be made. That's all from me. Thank you. I will pass to my friend to present the other limitation of activity-based costing.
My name is NURSYAFIQAH MOSTAM. My matric number is 278806. I will explain for the next limitation of activity-based costing. Activity-based costing is more preferred to be used by huge companies, not for small companies. It is because activity-based costing more accurate method of product or service costing and lead to have more accurate pricing decisions. It might increase the overhead cost and cost drivers. Just it will be costly for small companies. Therefore, it shows activity-based costing is more complex and more accurate than traditional costing. Since small companies have low capital and limited resources, they will be prefer to use traditional costing to save their budget company. Next, limitation activity-based costing also based on time involved. activity-based costing would take more time to finish the process. Team members must calculate manually for the cost of each product rather than totaling the cost and dividing them among all the items. The procedure of grouping the products must be completed into several pools. Mm. Moreover, activity-based costing requires a lot of time to collect data. They have to come out a lot of information to estimate activity expenses to access it. To get the information, it would need to be conducted by searching and going through by labor or machine hours. That's all from me. Thank you. I will pass to the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad SHAMIL NAZLEEN bin ZULKIFLI. My matric number is 278048. Now I would like to present about the limitation of activity-based costing, that ABC system. One of ABC system is difficult to measure the cost by using ABC system. The first reason is ABC are difficult to identify the overall activity that affect the cost. This is because it is impossible to allocate all overhead costs to specific activities unless costs are originated by a real-time activity that is computable in quantitative terms and which can be related to production or output. Cost driver will not be working. The second reason is ABC system require multiple cost driver to calculate the overhead cost. Moreover, it not easy to select the most suitable cost before making any useful decision to be missed of activity-based costing data. Manager must identify which costs are really relevant for the decision at hand. For the third reason is it need many calculation to determine the cost of product and services, and the activity cost rates need to be updated regularly. Let me show some example. Some manufacturing costs may be excluded from product cost. For example, the cost to heat the factory may be excluded as the product cost. This is because when it is necessary for production, it cannot be fit into one of the activity driven cost posts. Therefore, it seems like the ABC system is difficult to measure some of the manufacturing costs. Based on the article by Foster and Swenson 1997, they categorize the use of ABC measure into three based on the decision making. The first one is rating as compared to the previous cost management system in some specific decision. The second one is the frequency with which is business functional area use ABC information to make a decision. The third one is the frequency with which the different level of management use ABC. It seems like that ABC need many steps to calculate the cost and it will be difficult to measurement. The second article by Shabahang 2007, he claimed in the implementation of ABC, firm face basic problem making the implementation of the ABC system difficult. Therefore, if a company fails to resolve this problem properly, information obtained from ABC will not have the precision that was claimed either. One of these issues is the difference in the proportion of the consumption by activity by product. Those overhead cost items are collected in a group that assume almost equally by each of the product. The remarkable thing is that if the ratio of consumption of activity by product varies in a pool, it will cause the disruption of product cost. The second problem is the possibility of weak correlation between activity consumption and consumption of cost driver. In other words, lack of proper allocation of cost. Given that the ABC system is mostly recommended to companies that manufacture a variety of products and their activity is extensive. And the last problem is when the cost of implementing system get heavier by increasing the number of activities. Therefore, the probability of this problem in the large firm is not unexpected. So based on the article by Foster and Swenson and Shabahang, it seems like the ABC system is difficult in measuring the cost, especially the manufacturing cost. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Good day to doctor and everyone. My name is Suwaisan, metric number 278282. Now I will proceed to the last limitation of activity-based costing, which is the timeliness of information. First of all, I would like to explain the meaning of timeliness, which is the time expected for accessibility and availability of information. It can be measured as the time between when information is expected and when it is readily available for use. The meaning of information refers to the data collected based on companies' activities. In general, timeliness of information would be the time expected for accessibility and availability of companies' data. Now, I will explain why the timeliness of information will bring limitations in activity-based costing. Firstly, as the manager might require the data on daily or hourly basis in making report. However, the system used in the company might just provide information on monthly basis only. Therefore, the gap between the time information is reported and the time period is shown in a report will affect the quality of information reported in any report. From the journal articles, the process collecting data is a time-consuming process, especially in a company that have a large amount of employees. If the time taken for collecting data is longer, it will make the decision-making process becomes lengthy and less accurate because it is not based on the latest situations. To make my explanations more clearly, I would like to present an example. This example is take place in the inspections department. From the first stage, we can see that the inspections department manager were required to collect the inspection hours taken daily from the workers, and these companies have 10,000 employees at more than 20 facilities to submit a monthly report of time or locations. Due to the large amount of workers, it would definitely incur a higher cost of surveying longer period of time needed to collect the data from the large amount of workers. So it will put the systems in a place updated infrequently and causes the data reported might not be the latest and inaccurate. The quality of information reported is affected. As a result, it affects the decision-making process become lengthy and inaccurate due to the bad quality of information. So that's all the presentation for the limitations of activity-based costing on timeliness of information. Thank you.
So now I will do some summary for the conclusion of our presentation. So from the first limitation, we found out that the process of activity-based costing is very complex. It is because it requires detailed information to run the system. It also uses some statistical measurement, and sometimes it has become difficult to identify activity that may influence a certain cost that involved. For the second limitation, activity-based costing seems to be not suitable for the small companies due to the increasing value of the overhead, which may result to a higher cost. So since a small company have a small capital, then this activity-based costing may not favorable for them to apply. For the third limitation of time involvement, activity-based costing involves a longer time of process since it requires a manual calculation with more data involved. Next, for the limitation in terms of the difficulty in measurement, we discovered that there are many steps need to be calculated in this costing system because it involves multiple cost drivers in an operation, and the cost rates also need to be updated regularly. For the last limitation, which is the timeliness of information, we found out that the basis of data that required in making the company record and the costing system are not matched, where the company usually require a daily or hourly basis in making their report. However, the system of activity-based costing use the data in monthly basis. So other than that, it also consuming a longer time period in order to gather the data, especially for a larger company. Then this longer period may affect the decision making to be less accurate because it is not based on the latest situation. Last but not least, despite its perceived technical validity, it appears that activity-based costing system has not been widely adopted since it was introduced in 1980s. The proportion of activity-based costing users also have fallen, and the percentage of organizations rejecting it has risen slightly, and one of the reasons is due to the limitation that exists in this costing system. So that's the end of our presentation, and here are the list of references that being used in conducting this presentation. So thank you for your attention, and we hope that you're able to gain or learn something from this video. Thank you again for listening, and have a nice day.